Hi, students. Good afternoon. I hope you're all staying at your home and safe and utilizing this time for your studies effectively. Today, I'll be talking about this architectural design, different definition issues and design implications. Um, the idea of taking particularly this topic was there was different arguments in my mind that what topic we should cover because especially the architectural design where we need to have one-on-one discussion and especially in this during this time we are not having opportunity to have one-on-one discussion, so I thought why not to speak on architectural design where you can through this presentation and through this lecture you can relate to your design problem and you can you can again look at your design development process and you move ahead. So today I'll be speaking on architectural designs, different methods, not different methods, but whatever tools and techniques and methods architects have been using world over. I will just explain through their some of the works and projects they have done in past. So moving to the lecture, basically architecture design is a subset of architecture course where we try to enhance the skill of our architecture students on designs with the different exercises of studios and many times there is a very common saying that this architectural design is a process rather than a final product, and that is why we always emphasis on working continuously, they having discussions, having iteration, different iteration after some ideation. There is always a refinement, there is a back and forth method of attempting your design, and in this due course of this journey you get your product, which is your proposal for or your an outcome of your design problem which you have been given. So let's see quickly some of the very common methods and techniques used at different schools of architecture. Okay, so whenever we are given any design problem or projects to deal with, some of these points comes to our mind very naturally, and we try to think in those direction that what is the need of the project, what is the need, different needs of the project which I need to address, what is the context, what are the site which I need to handle, and what kind of different building forms I'll be achieving, or ultimate product which I'll be generating out of this design process. So going let's go very quickly on these two slides. We try to understand our area requirement of the project, and especially if any particular component of the building it requires a particular function, we try to mark it out. We try to understand what is the activity pattern of your, whether it is a standalone building or a campus. And if you see this figure, the top one, there are some thick lines and there are some less thicker lines. This itself denotes the amount of activity happening in that particular place. So we all need to understand that. So understand first, understanding your need, context, the build form which you will generate, what will be the activities, what will be the area requirement. These are some of the common questions we try to develop our understanding with the given set of parameters. Uh, these are some of the two very common tools on the matrix, which is functional relationship of different functions of a building, or what are the relationship between different design issues that we try to figure out. And that way, these two tools are actually very handy, and it gives you a better understanding of your priorities, and by doing so you consolidate your course of action, how you will be dealing with your different buildings, different parts, or different functions altogether. uh, I will not go into the all the minute details of different methods, but some of the important points which I will try to cover is here. And one of them is contextual analysis is very important to comprehend your design, to comprehend your site, to comprehend your client's requirement, your building's requirement, or your functional requirement is very important. And that way we try to figure out with these small activity charts, every site has its some of the views from the site, or from outside to your site. Some of site is in close proximity to the noise level, and you need to do some noise zoning also. There are some buildings which is service oriented buildings, like hospitals, hotels, and restaurants, where you have supplies on daily basis, and you need to have a separate service entry and exit. There are some projects, by virtue of their size, they are so big that they accommodate pedestrian movement as well as the vehicular movement. And we need to understand what is the kind of this pedestrian movement or circulation pattern will be there within your site. What will be the different zoning areas for parking areas, because approaching your building, while approaching your building, and from your parking areas to your building, there are so many other areas you need to tackle those areas. So that is why we try to understand all these small issues beforehand you start approaching your design. Some of the very common issues, like every time your site setting is not same. Sometimes you have a site of different climatic conditions. Sometimes your goal is to welcome sun, sometimes your goal is to avoid direct sun, or maybe some other points which you need to cover. So sometimes you are dealing with your site is in a close proximity to a very important heritage precincts, where you need to really think of your overall the building mass which you will be coming through your design, how it is responding to your these heritage buildings. So you have to be very careful. Similarly, sometimes some of the spaces in your project or in your building is having very controlled environment, and these controlled interior and exterior environment. If you don't take care of it, it may harm there may be a possibility of you are not able to function properly. So these are some of the points which I have tried to bring in here, just to remind you again that don't forget all these important issues while you are designing. Moving further to we move to as soon as we get the site and area requirements or your site requirements, we try to figure out and do site analysis. And this is a kind of method where we try to jot down all the possibilities, threats, potentials with respect to your site, and with these kind of sketches we develop a conceptual analysis of our site, which helps us to develop our zoning and ultimately your programming, overall project programming. Zoning, you may say it's a kind of the next step where you try to place different functions according to their peculiarities, or sometimes some of the functions they are interrelated, so we try to place them together. Like if you see this particular slide, the author has he has put these bubble diagrams in different colors, and where he has earmarked some of the functions which will be independently, or some of the functions which will be having close proximity. So that way we finalize our zoning, tentative zoning, to move for further programming. And with the programming, actually we are consolidating our you may say that final locations of your different functions, major function with its minor function. So if you see this particular slide, you will find that how author has consolidated or some finalized his location of different functions, like pool in the center, this purple big bubble which is having quite accommodation area, which will be having further its sub function like walkability, resting areas, fish ponds, birds cage, and all these things, which requires a little bit calm area. So this way we actually on this stage we have almost full picture of our project in our hand, that these are the areas which we are going to address in this design problem. From here onwards, actually in my presentation I'll be taking the different parameters or methods and techniques and tools which architects have attempted across the world, and many a times we should take care of all these parameters or design parameters, whatever you call variables, parameters, or design issues, very carefully. Responding to your site context, to your context or your site, is one of the very important aspect. If you see these two, three examples, one of the very good example of how to respond to your site conditions is Rococo housing in Japan, done by Tadao Endo. This building itself looks like this rock is coming out of this natural surrounding, and its overall massing and build form perfectly merges out with its immediate context. Another example in this courtyard house, if you see this, the overall skyline of the building which the architect has achieved is perfectly merging with the hills in the backdrop. So it doesn't look like if any alien kind of structure with sitting to a conformity zone. So another one of the good example of responding to your site is this JP University in Solan, Himachal Pradesh, done by Arcop Architects. If you see this, the way architects have developed this concept, and they have achieved the overall build form in this almost non-buildable areas. Almost, I say, because if you see this slopes, this terrain it's very difficult, and the way they have designed this building is something which we can learn a lot from there. Moving to the next topic is master planning is one of the a very important aspect, especially those who are in final year and they have taken institution as a their thesis topic. uh, Master planning is something which needs a lot of things to be thinking. You have to do multiple tasking while you are doing this master planning, because you are dealing with multiple of the buildings at the same time. Every building has its own is having different complexity and magnitude, and you have to bind them all together in a cohesive way that your overall projects comes out in a very desired way. One of the very good example of this master plan of this Delhi Technological University is done in 90s by architect Ajay Chaudhary. You can see it's a perfect example of radial planning, where architects have given thought to design. And here you can see that a major road on the is abutting on the periphery, and this major road is actually serving to the all these different departments conceived around the central facility of computer center. Actually, this computer center is, if you see this computer center in the center of this whole complex, it is a kind of binding element which is binding all the departments all together. In a symbolic way, you can say it is one of the finest examples of how a reference point can be developed in a campus. One can orient himself standing from there, that which side is our humanities department, or which side is engineering department, or which side is our auditorium, or library, or maybe canteen, or some other functions, hostels and all these things. So looking at this complex, this campus, if you see this bottom three pictures, you will find this there is a circular pathway. Actually, it's a cycle track which is running all around inside the central plaza, and through this auditorium and library, it is going toward the hostel side. So to promote this bicycling, the architects have worked out this cycle track, and ultimately it meets at different points with the major road, and leads, and ultimately is going towards the residential area and the hostel block side. If you see the massing of the building and the way they have juxtaposed together different blocks, even though they are having different functions, they have their own identity, they have their own privacy. They have been placed in such a way that they don't interfere with each other. They are connected with one block is connected with other block at maybe some at different levels, with different some there is some plaza which is connecting to your computer center and your auditorium, or there is a small corridor which is connecting library to auditorium. So these are some of the very fine examples of how you connect all your buildings together. You never feel like whenever you are walking in this campus, you never feel like you are in one corner of the your campus. Always there is something to cherish, and you can celebrate, and you can enjoy, and you can relate yourself with these different buildings of different heights and typology. One of the as I said, this central plaza is the most happening place in this campus. Students take this place as if they are own. Always they are hanging around this, and especially if you see this computer center, the staircase which is coming from first floor and leading toward this pathways which is cutting across this water body and going towards this stepped plaza. You will find students hanging most of the times in these kind of places. So one of the major learning or or takeaway message from here, your spaces has to be not only it should be functional, but it has to be it should deal with different layers and of with human satisfaction, because it's not it's, too- it's suppose if we take this campus, students, faculties, and teaching and non-teaching staff, they're all the stakeholders of this, and everybody. If you see this campus, everybody is having their spaces. Every all these stakeholders can relate to some part of the other of this campus, and so that is the beauty of this campus. If you see the different blocks, if you see this humanities block, the connecting corridors at different levels, at different heights, this y-shaped column, all these things create interest, and whenever you're walking, and make your journey very pleasant whenever you're walking from one corner to the another corner of your this campus. All the spaces have been designed if you with very utmost care, be it it is a administrative block, be it is a hostel block, or be it is it's a library, or a auditorium. Every space has been thought of very minutely, and whenever you are inside this space, you immediately relate yourself to these spaces. You relate with the geometry of this the particular buildings sitting there, and that is the beauty of your outcome, your product, when your stakeholder is able to relate to your buildings. Moving to another fine example of master planning is JP University of Information and Technology in Solan, Himachal Pradesh. As I said earlier, this whole campus is sitting in a very almost non-buildable terrains, very difficult terrains. But if you see this all these buildings, the way they have designed the circulation, the major roads, the access from roads to the buildings, even if you want to negotiate levels from one level to another level, the architects have done in a very marvelous way. Even if you see these blocks in night time, you will find that this is it's very relatable. All the terraces, the way terraces has been utilized to negotiate the different levels, the gardens and terraces, is another ways. So basically, these are all the different tools and techniques and methods when you are dealing with, especially I'll suggest my students in final year those, because most of them is having sites in Mizoram, which is having itself is a very difficult terrain to deal with, and you can always draw some inspiration from these kind of projects to how to deal with your circulation, how to design your road network, how to place your different functions in this. If you see this campus, it itself is a very narrow and long elongated shape, and at times it is difficult to place buildings and road network to service, but there is always and that is why where as an architect our expertise comes, and we are expected to produce this kind of overall architecture. If you see the second example of left hand side, second example, MP Council of Science and Technology in Bhopal. This site is again, it's a very narrow site. It is a narrow elongated site, and the site is actually sloping toward north side. It's another example how to deal with your sloping sites and having steep slopes. You can if you see this model of this building, you will find this building is completely following the shape of the plot or your site. uh, there is a kind of linearity, and this linearity has been broken with courtyards of different sizes, interlinked courtyard of different sizes. So there is, so whenever you are walking in this, whether you are walking on the road or whether you are walking on your pedestrian pathways, there is no there is always a kind of sense of interest, and there is a pause point, there is a wow point you can always cherish, and you can enjoy these different spaces. So responding to your shape of your site, responding to the terrain, responding to the so many different conditions, uh, is some of the pre-required points which I'll say, which all of you should take care. Otherwise, just putting your building blocks here and there, and assuming that some road without proper gradient will cater to these buildings is actually not going to help. So you may have seen some good examples or bad example, but it is my suggestion you should follow some of the good examples where you can bring and change to pacify the bad examples. Moving to further, as I said, this architecture is if you see the overall architecture of a building, it is actually a integrated end product of different building elements. Be it is entrance, be it is a staircase, be it is a corridor, be it overall massing of the building. All these things actually are responsible for making overall good architecture. And let us start with some of these elements one by one, and try to understand how these things are important while you are designing your, or while you are attempting your architectural design. Looking at these two examples, you can see the architect has very smartly he has accentuated the entrance itself. As I always say, your building has to be self-explanatory. If whether a person is coming a first time or he comes every day, he should be able to figure out where is the entrance, where is the exit, where are the areas where I am supposed to go or where I am not supposed to go. These are some of the prerequisites of any buildings. Because if your users are not able to use or navigate your building properly, then this blame come to us that we are not able to actually design spaces which is for the which is coming handy for the end users. So let us, looking at these two examples, you will find that in the first example, left side, the Museum of Modern Art, you will find this architect Kishio Kurokawa from Japan. He has very smartly, he has skewed a little bit this entrance a little bit at angle, and the columns and beams framework is jutting out from these buildings, and it itself suggests the kind of entrance or something, some function which is actually happening through it, and it generates in curiosity, and also at the same time it also guides you to move towards that side. So if I say entrance itself is saying yes, I am entrance, and that is the beauty of this project. And if you see this the other part of this building being a museum, sometimes it has to be blank walls or very less openings in museums. it is a challenge for the architect to generate or generate interesting architecture, because and that is why probably this architect has actually the wherever he can have or he can do, he has tried to do that. In second example, in this Nagoya City Art Museum in Japan, again you can see this freestanding RCC frame structure uh, jutting out from the whole building. It itself is indicating a movement pattern which ultimately leads to the entrance of the building. Uh, Second, let's see some of the examples practiced here in India by different architects. If you see this, I'll start with this IRMA library. IRMA Indian, it's a rural management institute in Anand, done by architect Mr. Kanvinde. It is one of the buildings sitting inside the campus of this IRMA campus, and it's a library building. And if you see this, the entrance of this building, you can easily make out that the first floor is jutting out from the ground floor, and this first floor itself is working as a lab. It's a canopy for the entrance of the building. And another thing here, from an entrance point of view, you can even see the kind of scale he has achieved is something you can learn from here. If you see this, another example of this Care Institute, the way the architect has used the different elements, whether it is a roof or entrance space or a staircase or location of these columns or corridors, it is wonderful. This free floating roof itself, it generates a lot of this double height free floating roof, standing on these two columns, the corridors giving in another direction, and this whole space with full of lights and shadow, that itself creates a lot of interest, and as a whole, its complete scheme, it itself generates, it itself suggests the entrance of this building. If you see another example how this the street project or this the skewed house by Lizzo Reni architects, you will find that the way they have worked out the geometry in this residence, especially this portico's roof and wall at certain angles, is emphasizing its entrance actually. So even in this institute's project at Mathura, the street, if you see this single flight going directly to the first floor, painted in a different colors, yellow and blue, itself suggests about the entrance of the building. So these are some of the these are not the only method of doing so. These are some of the methods which different architects have actually attempted. You can look at your design whenever you are. So it is my suggestion, whenever you are looking at especially because particularly for entrance, there is a saying, first impression is the last impression. If you are not able to deal with your entrance properly, then it has certain related with other issues we will discuss in subsequent slides. Again, here these are some of the entrance of the projects, and here you can see these different geometries, circular spaces, the steel, the parachute cloth, this entrance made with these different triangular shapes. All these actually producing a perfect setting of a foreground for a building. The flooring pattern, the landscape element, and different color shaped walls. You can see these small children, they are sitting there, they enjoying. Itself suggests the successful space here altogether. Coming to the next, or moving to the next Yeah, walls and planes play a very important role. How people see or look at the architecture or relate to that particular building. Here you can see the in the both examples, whether it is a Museum of General Science in Japan or SDC school in Delhi, or even in temple in Bangalore. None of the wall is actually, if you see this school building facade, front facade, none of the wall is in actually the perfectly going in a 90-degree angle. All these walls perforated, some of the perforation in the walls and at different angles, uh, you know with different landscape element, creating lot of interest. And this whole overall this build form actually, it's producing a different architecture altogether. If you see this Museum of General Science, uh, the way they have, architects has created a slit in the wall. Actually it creates a lot of interest. It brings light inside the, actually there is a staircase behind this slit. This slit you can see, there is this whole this two walls is housing actually the staircase. So dealing with that particular portion of the building with this different, exciting way is, some of the method which you can apply, or you can look into your design, how not exactly in the same way, but how you are looking at your staircase, how you are looking at your plain walls actually. So that these are not a simple plain walls, but it is a matter of interest also. Even if you see this shikhar of this temple, you will find this architect, this overlapping different layers of this shikhar, and the small slits over there. These slits actually let lights inside this, and when you are inside, you see upside, you can see this different layers of RCC walls with small slits, which it's, I can say it's a modern transformation of traditional our shikhara design. So why can't we can why can't we can think of, when we are dealing with our design, why we need to think in traditional way always? Why can't we, our design can be a complete paradigm, in a different paradigm, or different, reference point when it comes to for others reference. Yeah, coming to scale is something which is very important. Ultimately, we are making, we whatever we are producing or making is meant for human being. Uh, if our stakeholders or humans, basically they are using these buildings, they are at the, and it is very important, and I say always that looking at the scale is very important. Whosoever is using it, whether it's a 6-year-old kid or a young man or an old person, he should be able to relate with the structure where actually he is. If you look all these examples, in whether in APID in Vidyanagar or Gandhi Ashram in Ahmedabad, or a heritage hotel in Madurai, done by Sri Lankan architect Jeffrey Baba, you will find the way they have achieved the scale is marvelous, exemplary. Even if you see these two swimming pools of different scales, one swimming pool is at campus level, and another swimming pool in the right hand side corner. It's a small pool which is attached to a room, uh, and dealing with same kind of function at different scale is sometimes it's a challenging. And below you can see the entrance, and it's a perfect example of vernacular architecture, how you utilize the locally available material, the wood, the stone, and the other materials they have utilized. And the entrance, you can the left one, uh, it's the moment you move inside in this campus, it is always the point of curiosity. It is you start immediately relating to these places, whether it is a roof or whether it's columns or floorings or outdoor landscape or inside room. All of these places are very close to the human scale, and that is that is one of our aim is to actually when you are dealing with your architecture. So I suggest many times I suggest to my students, whenever you are designing, make lot of sketches. Whenever you are designing a particular space, make lot of sketches, put you there human figure, put landscape element there, and then you analyze and refine your design. That gives you better idea of understanding your architecture, which you are actually right now you are refining, or maybe you have done. Massing in solid and voids is one of the major one of the element or thought process which guides our overall architectural products. If you see these different buildings done by different architects at different places and different point of time, you will find there is a common method that everyone has tried to bring in this sense of openness, the sense of close openness. There is a if I talk, let us take this example of this NDTV house, NDTV head office in Delhi. It itself looks like a solid rock sitting in an urban fabric. But if you see this example carefully, you will find that the whole structure is never away from the nature. You will find there is a lot of small terraces and planters, openings, different blocks jutting out from its respective ground floor or above floor. Giving it's a very interesting geometry altogether. Even if you read this Harivallabh house done by Mr. Kanvinde in Ahmedabad, different these balconies in jutting out at different levels and heights, and that too at a human scale. Never forget this, because you are dealing with human beings, and if they are not able to relate, then there is no meaning of producing that kind of spaces. Look at this Sriram Center of Performing Art. It's a very bold expression of architecture, where you can see this theater, and especially these after independence produced this kind of architecture has actually set examples for others to follow. Another example of this apartment planning vertically, this Kanchenjunga apartment done by Mr. Korea is another fine examples of how you can create cozy personal spaces, even a multi-story building where residents have their own story in their own spaces. So whenever you are dealing with make a lot of 3D models, do a lot of 3D study models every day. I think include this process into your designing, that whenever you are designing, look at those study models at different eye levels and analyze them, and what can be the what we can bring in, what can be the carved out, or what spaces give you definition to those spaces. So that way you can understand your buildings in a better way, and definitely you will be achieving a better architecture by doing so. Yeah, circulation is another very important aspect in a building. It is now there is a complete new definition of this circulation spaces, which is actually binding element or Many a times I say it is sometimes it is more important, because especially when you are dealing with multifunctional buildings or multiple of buildings, even though it is a standalone building or it is a group of buildings, this corridors or this connecting spaces, actually, they are all public places. They they set your mood, actually. Walking in a dark, dingy, long corridors, or walking in this kind of corridors with full of lights, always in contact with nature, makes a lot of difference. You need to decide what can be the priorities, what will be your priorities. If you see all these projects, whether it is a national insurance academy in Pune, where the architects have designed corridors in in a beautiful way, connecting from one building to another building, and that too on a human scale. Whenever you're walking, your journey is never boring. You always exploring something, whether these horizontal bands or vertical bands, or roof, or a different shapes of the other structure. So that way you need to you define your journey, and that is why I say this circulation space is a kind of journey we should carve out very carefully. If you see this Bangalore, I am Bangalore corridors, long columns, long corridors, one side wall, and top. If you see the top half, top is open with trellises, and half the corridor is covered. So whenever you are walking, you are half in the sun and half in the covered. There is always a constant dialogue between you and nature and building, and that should be the goal of as an architect, or as a sensitive person. So look at these circulation spaces, bring nature inside in your building as possible as you can. And I know many of you have experienced, especially during this lockdown. You might have analyzed your space which currently you are residing in, that some of the spaces you must be hating to go there, and some of the places you must be liking the most. Why it is happening so? Analyze that, and that kind of analysis actually will give you a lot of insight into the your refinement of design. As I said, bring outside inside your building. It creates it's not only a healthy environment, but also it affects your working efficiency also. If you see these different examples, if you see this example of Sky Habitat in Singapore, you can see it's a multi-story. It's a big time high-rise building. It's a residential building. Think of somebody who is living at the 25th floor or 56th floor. He is totally cut off from the ground floor. What his psychology will be, right? Or if you see this another example, Royal Ensign in Jaipur, done by Mr. Ajoy Chaudhary. These two are the fine examples. If you see this, if I talk about this apartment in Jaipur, you will find there is a square. If you see from a distance, you will find there is always a connect from the infinite. These small punchers, square punchers, your connects your foreground and your buildings to the nature, to the sky. That itself is a big time achievement. And if you see this these punches closely, you will find these are the individual terraces, where nobody can peek inside your terraces. That itself gives you a ground at maybe 4th floor or 5th floor or 10th floor. That is, and why can't we think of that? And that's what even Moses Shafdi has tried to attempt in his Sky Habitat in Singapore. You can see these buildings. You can find these walkways at maybe the 21st floor, maybe 50th floor, on the maybe 42nd floor. There is a big garden. There is a big playing area for the children with full of nature. and that way you can satisfy the human psyche and his psychological needs also. So bringing nature not only makes your project or your building interesting, but it brings life inside your building. Moving next to staircase, sometimes some people, this is just a method of negotiating from one floor to another or different levels. But I always say to my students, please look at these building elements very carefully. Uh, if you see this all these different examples world over, uh, people have actually they have used staircase as a focal point of their project, whether it is your entrance staircase, whether a staircase leading to a corridor, whether it is a staircase from your drawing room to the upper floor. They makes a lot of difference. If you see this if you can see these two residence projects, where the staircase is connecting lower level to the upper level, and there is a slit of light. You can see the light which is coming from the top onto the staircase. This is a perfect composition of location of your staircase, and thinking of roof light over it. Another case, if you see another example of this residence, staircase flanked by these two walls, it is totally cut off from the other spaces, with very rich finishes of wood or trades and riser. It itself creates a very different experience. If you see this example of UCO Bank in Ahmedabad, where Hasmukh Patel has staircase is leaving directly from ground floor to the second floor. This huge staircase. So why not? When you are dealing with your staircases, whenever you are dealing with any element which is negotiating from the which is negotiating for the different levels, always look all these elements very carefully, be it a staircase, be it is a ramp or ladder or whatever it is, or different sets of staircase, even that is also possible. That makes a lot of difference in how you I have seen people design houses in a split level. Even you are moving from ground floor to third floor, you never feel like that you have come on the third floor. Wow, when you reach at third floor, you suddenly realize that I am on the third floor, and that is the genius, and that we can also do that. So look all those elements carefully. Coming to the next, material and finishes is very important, and especially in this pressing time when the society is facing a lot of other issues, and where vernacular architecture has come to the forefront for the practice. Whenever you are designing any place, and you are thinking of its finisher, it's very important. If you see all these examples, you will find different practitioners have the way they have selected the materials, whether it is a corridor, whether it is a roof, whether it is an overhanging roof, whether it is an entrance, whether it is a staircase, or whether it is a pergola or walls. Call it any place. Everything require a lot of thought to decide your finishes, and that brings life, and I said relativity to your stakeholders. Designing in a countryside and dealing with stones gives your projects to a perfect setting in that countryside. dealing with your some of the finishes which has more indigenous earthen look, always gels with your immediate landscape. Think of all these things. Think of even if you see this one of these pictures and corridors connecting from one place to another, you will find the architect has used wooden planks and MS steel jali. So think of this variety of material and finishes to your product, and choose them carefully for different areas and functions. That will give not only give life to your project, but it will also justify your overall design also. So looking at some of more examples of how architects have attempted in different parts of the world. Look at this mosque in Bangladesh. Architect Marina Tabassum, the way she has she has designed this ceiling and the flooring and the walls with the it's a very low budget exposed brickwork project, and you will find amazing interior and exterior amalgamation of the effects. The way she has made small punches, and whenever the sun moves around, this drama of this light actually happens on the floor. You can see the picture kind of openings, and that immediate wall which is open to sky brings a lot of light from there inside this mosque. Two other right and left hand side skylights, which is again bringing diffuse lights. But apart from these elements, the way the architects have selected the material, that makes a big point actually, because this with overall geometry and the selection of this material, actually they complement each other, and this all these effects is actually accentuated. If you see these two examples of this residence at Baroda, how smartly this young architect has used this clay tiles in his building elevation, that is also it's a remarkable example, and it's a kind of innovation which we should always look into it. Designing your open spaces, who said that there should always be a four walls and roof? These open spaces can be designed with some alternative materials also. The way this if you see this top picture with lights, lot of lights, you will find that this architect has designed this tensile structure with lot of supports and hanging roof. That itself is it's generates a lot of excitement, because this is a kind of sitting for a restaurant, and the space itself is an informal space. So giving it a definition of informality, you can look into that kind of materials, which perfectly blends to its function. One of the ends, you can see one of the ends which is holding this tensile material, tensile structure. Why I have put this picture is here is to look at these final details also, because even if you are thinking that some materials you will be applying to you, how you will be using that understanding has to be developed. Otherwise, if you don't know how it will happen, then things will be difficult. So think of up to that end detail also, how it will happen. So the selection of material according to your function, according to your space, according to your money is also an important thing, but for now academic purpose, you can little bit overlook it, but ultimately when you will be practicing, you have to look into economics also. So these are the some of the point which I think is very important while you are refining your design or while you are looking at your design. Please look into all these aspects very carefully, and I hope these all these examples which I have quoted here will be a reference point for your for you, especially when we are not able to see you face to face daily basis. You can draw some inspiration from these spaces, from these examples, from these works of these great architects. This I call them sensitive architects, because taking your decision with sensitivity makes a lot of difference. That is why I call them sensitive architects. So I hope this will give a hope and an idea how to refine your designs thinking. And always keep in mind that this all this thinking doesn't happen in compartment. It has to be in a very integrated way. Whenever you are dealing with your design, you have to think all these parameters, parallel thinking. It cannot be like that you finalize your one block and then you start thinking about materials, you start thinking about the technology you will be using, you start thinking about your how the roof structure will be. No, that is not the best way of moving ahead. So that is why I'm saying that there has to be a lot of parallel thinking to finalize your design, to refine your design. And I hope you will be with this small presentation, you will be able to do justice with your design. At the last what I have experienced in last 1 or 2 months, some of you are still waiting for some perfect time. There is no perfect time. Whatever the situation, whatever the conditions, whatever the resources, whatever the things you have to work in those conditions also. So start today. Today is the perfect time, and because the time lost today will never come again in your life. So this is my suggestion, and some study tips. Make your we are not here to look you every day. So the best thing is self discipline is the best thing. Study with small goals for every day. Collaborate with your friends, your pals, and move ahead. And the best thing is what you are doing is you test yourself, and in that way I think you will be able to move ahead even in these difficult times without the help of your faculty. Thank you very much.